Yo. Hey, everybody, this is Javier Balderramos. This is Planet Texas Podcast. I have one of my favorite guests. He is my favorite artist in Magic the Gathering. His name is RK Post. Now, if you ask yourself, RK Post, like, why is that so familiar? Like, is that a name on the bottom of a card? And I'm like, well, yes, it is. This is a face. This is a body. This is a person. He's an artist. He's one of my favorite people that I always see at the events when I go to it, when I'm actually able to take the time off. RK Post, I want to thank you for being on my show, sir.
Absolutely my pleasure.
So a lot of people are like, man, what are the cards that he's done? I was like, well, it's a good thing you asked. Like,
I was gonna say, do I have any sitting around here? I have a couple bins over there, but
it's okay. It's good because I got all the tokens in the world.
Okay.
I'll be able to put them on the show.
Okay.
But also, one of my favorite cards that tortures the people in Legacy is called Unmask. You are the main culprit of drawing that card.
Well, now that they banned grief, it's back again.
Well, no, Unmask, like actual Unmask. Like, we don't use those cards.
Fair.
But also, you did an entire set of avatars. A lot of people don't know.
Yeah, the entire cycle, but then there was like a bonus one. There was a 2-color one later on.
So you had what? You had Discord, Fury, Hope, Might, Will, and Woe. Did I get them all?
You got them all.
I have most of them on paper. Like, I wish I was able to pull them out of my collection right now, but since we're recording.
Yeah, no, it's let me see. Let's see if I get them all too. Hope, Fury, Might, Woe, and Will. And then Discord.
And then, like, I also have this Lightning Angel, which I also play with a lot with the old 5-color aggro and Modern.
Oh, you played Modern?
Of course. I play all the formats. I'll play all the formats, but Commander. Everything but Commander is what I play.
Yeah. Usually Lightning Angels you play in pre-Modern.
Well, it's not playing at the beginning of Modern.
No, in pre-Modern. The
pre-Modern.
Yeah. That crazy format that they play in Europe and stuff. So, yeah. There's
a lot of stuff that they play with.
Yeah.
So you have your own website. A lot of people may not know, but it's at rkpost.net.
That's the one.
And what are some of the additional things that you sell on rkpost.net?
Oh, it's a mix. I mean, it's behind me. You can see some of the smaller prints right there, the black and white ones. But I have 2 larger ones in full color. And then we also have you can't see it, but over here, 1,000+ paper tokens. We got aluminum tokens. We got acrylic tokens. Plus playmat bags, dice bags. There's even like some originals. I mean, this one isn't on it, but like random original stuff. I'm thinking, what else? That's kind of it for the most part. Keep it kind of simple. It's all kind of magic focused, but I'm starting to add tokens for Locana and the Star Wars game, and I worked up a couple for Flesh and Blood too.
So you also do playmats. A lot of people don't know that you have specified playmats that actually go with certain decks, or at least they're like tendencies towards those decks.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, like I have some that are deck specific.
Like I have your Death and Taxes. I also have your Infinity.
Yeah. There's an Infect one, and there's something else too. Storm. There's a Storm one too.
Well, you see, I don't actually own the Infect one because I never got into Infect.
Yeah, that's the thing. You have to know.
Yeah. So I have the rest of them because like I have those decks, so you gotta play with those.
Yeah.
Not that you're giving away, the secrets when you like show up with the Death and Taxes mat.
Or get a D&T mat and play something else. Just mess with their heads. That's usually what I'd say is like get an infect counter, put it on the table, and then play something else.
So I got a couple of questions for you. That if you would be gracious enough to answer them and give me your perspective and your life and history and so forth, and your future as well as magic.
Okay. Yeah,
So if you could tell us your journey of the world of fantasy art and what inspired you to pursue this path.
It was kind of silly. I went to school at Northern Illinois University, and I happened to have a professor that was he was working in fantasy illustration and also comics. And there's actually a few magic artists that have the same guy. And then I found someone else recently who had the same teacher, but at a completely different school because he moved from Illinois to Texas. So he teaches down in Texas now.
Good. I love that.
Yeah.
Already.
But she happened to have him in Illinois, but there's probably a whole new crop of people coming up down from Texas.
So what does your creative process looks like, and how do you approach new projects and concepts to completion?
It's changed a bit over the years, but it's still kind of basically the same. And I'll sort of describe like maybe doing an oil painting. Okay. So that I kind of started using oils. You do a sketch, and I work those up pretty traditionally, like you're sketching on paper or tracing paper. Because sometimes what I'll do is I'll do a sketch on tracing paper, put it under a couple sheets, then I'll draw on top of that, put that under a couple sheets, draw on top of that, and kind of refine it as I go along. But at some point, you take a scan and you send it to the art director to sort of get approvals to make sure that you're on the right track. And then from there, once the approvals are all done, you'll just take that. And what I would do is it was a little different back in the day, but it's pretty similar to something I did like 20 years ago, where I would print it out on paper and mount that paper to masonite, seal it all in acrylic medium, and then paint on top of that with oils. So you wouldn't actually see any of the underpainting underneath it. And that's the one thing I realized. So like back in the day, what I would do is I'd do an underpainting in like a brown tone acrylic. There'd be some texture in it. And then what I quickly realized is I paint pretty darn opaquely, and you're not seeing any of that work. And it was just kind of a waste of time for me. But having base values and tones underneath it helps a lot. Like it pulls like little things here and there. But somewhere in the middle of my magic career, I worked digitally, so it was just all in Photoshop. So there wasn't anything else to show really. But now these days, I'm back to doing oils again.
Like, how did you get into Magic the Gathering, if you don't mind me asking?
It's a convoluted story that won't ever sort of be repeated. And there's a couple of us that sort of took the same path. So because I went to Northern Illinois University, the first freelance job I had was doing D&D, because TSR, the company that produced D&D, was just across the border in Wisconsin. So that professor that I was talking about, we took a drive up north, introduced me to an art director, and before I even graduated, I was freelancing. And then eventually it turned into a staff job. So, I mean, I was working with some of my fantasy heroes and stuff like that. And it was pretty darn cool. But like a year into it, Wizards of the Coast bought the company. And at that time, I contacted them, sort of asked to do some magic. I always wanted to do magic and just never really found the right way in. So now I kind of had I was an employee now, so it was a little bit easier to make a contact.
So you have like a favorite piece or a project that you worked on that kind of just stands out, that lets you like, I really enjoy this?
I'm going to split that up into a couple bits. So like my favorite painting of all time is from Magic, and it's Unmasked. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier. It turned out almost exactly the way I wanted it to. So I don't know. Sometimes when you start a painting, you have a thought in mind of where you want it to go and how you want it to turn out. And for me, it's just kind of a wandering process. You just wind up somewhere, and hopefully it gets kind of close to what you were thinking of, or it turns out, maybe better than what you're thinking of. But that one kind of stuck pretty close to it, and I thought I had a really good notion of how I wanted to look, and that one kind of came out the same way. I will say there was a line in TSR that I probably had the most fun with. It was Alternity. It was the science fiction thing, and they just kind of cut me loose and just do whatever. So me just doing kind of like a dark science fiction-y thing was, nobody had a problem with it. So that was just me on my own. You know, I was working staff, so they were just paintings on my schedule. So easy peasy.
So outside of Magic the Gathering, do you do any other additional work?
These days, not so much, only because I travel a lot. Like I'm traveling this weekend. I had last weekend off, but the last few weekends before that, I was pretty much all over the place. And
I
I
know, I saw
really
your
don't.
calendar.
I know it's crazy. And there's an internal debate. There's a weekend open that became open. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I have to figure out what's going on. You know, do I leave the weekend open or do I go do something in the Midwest? And the debate is maybe I just stay home. Can't get ready for Vegas.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced in your career as an artist?
Earlier on, it was finding the work, and now because I limit how much work I do and who I do it for, it's a lot easier now. But I would say my biggest challenge now, and even back then, was getting the time and making the deadlines, and because you're spinning a lot of different plates all at once, and sometimes when you're working on a freelance project, it's more than one thing. It's a bunch of different things that you have to get done in a certain amount of time, or it's like a thing from this project, another thing from that project, another thing from this project, and it's the same thing. You have to spin those plates and kind of decide how you're going to get it all done.
So how does it affect your family life, always traveling?
We made some changes recently where when I am home, 6 o'clock, I'm done. I just go downstairs and do family time. So, yeah.
So what are some of your biggest influences in the art world that you have impacted your work?
I always kind of harken back, and then I would say, my teacher, Mark Nelson, was kind of the same way. You sort of look at the turn of the century illustration. So like in black and white, it was like Franklin Booth, Virgil Finlay. And then you kind of brought into color, and, it was like Arthur Rackham. Geez, I don't know, Waterhouse, Pyle, Wyeth. So yeah, it's always really good to kind of look back at the people that sort of broke into what you're doing the first time around and had a much different or much better approach to it than maybe a lot of people do. So yeah, I kind of look at that. I try to, but I also
No,
watch
of
a lot of
course,
TV
of
movies too.
course.
So.
So what advice would you give somebody that's inspiring artist that's not trying to get into magic, but trying to get into the fantasy art industry altogether?
Oh, it's hard. It's really hard. All right, how about this? If you're really determined and you want to do this, and I will say right now that the pay is not amazing. It hasn't gone up in 30 years for a lot of things, and some things it's actually gone down. So paying bills is probably not. This is not your best way to do it. Unless you do a lot of work, and you could probably do it, or you find bigger, better projects, and then you can do it that way too. But not everybody kind of starts out there. And AI art has kind of narrowed the field down a little bit. Thankfully, not as much as I thought it was going to at first. I think traditional artists, or even digital artists, are still very much appreciated. There were a couple games out there that tried to go the AI route, and I don't know. I haven't heard much out of them in a while, and I don't know. We'll see. It's all figuring itself out. Okay, so back to my original point. My son kind of did the same thing. He never finished school, but he did one really smart thing: is he networked with people in the field. So we got to know someone who knew someone else, and so on and so forth. And you make these connections, and that's sort of how you kind of get into it. So pretty much, all the game and fantasy art is put into publication. You have an art director. So if you can find a way of knowing the art director or getting into their field of view, that your chances are much better than just blindly sending a portfolio and hoping something comes of it.
So is your son into the fantasy art? So if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, pretty much. He works full time as a video game concept artist.
Oh wow, that's pretty
Yeah.
creative.
Mm-hmm.
Runs in the family of art.
I guess so.
What's up? So do you have any upcoming projects or collaborations you're working? Particularly.
There's Kickstarter launching in the next day or two. Since I'm not running the Kickstarter itself, and it's playmat and print based. There's links on my website, rkpost.net. You can go find all the linkage there. But I will be making announcements when it does finally go live, which should be very soon. Part of the problem was there was another artist who just launched his Kickstarter last week, and we didn't want to kind of butt our heads up against each other. So we're giving that a little space to breathe, and then we'll do our thing. But also, as I said, I'm not the one actually in charge of when everything goes up, but I'm here to sort of help keep it all together. So
that's what that is about.
What's that?
May I ask what that is about?
The Kickstarter?
Yeah. What is the Kickstarter all about?
It's Magic playmats. So official Magic playmats through Ultra Pro, and some art prints and sizes I never offered before. Lots of good fun stuff.
And how artistically styled evolved over the years? And what's the biggest factor that have influenced these changes?
Oh, I don't know. I will say anyone's approach to art is sort of based on, you sort of build up a library in your head of stuff and things that you see over time. And then you apply different things, you learn different things, and you kind of store it all up here. And then it's all how you throw that salad down on the table is how it kind of comes out. So I will say over time, you pick up new things. You also forget old things. So for better or worse, sometimes you forget some really good stuff, but you pick up some kind of new fun stuff. And then, I don't know, you kind of all figure it out from there. But I will say that when I started doing freelance work, I was working in pen and ink. And then somewhere in the middle, you have to go to color because the rates are better. And then you go to painting because, if you're working on a game like Magic the Gathering, you have to do full color work, and doing a painting is much better than not doing a painting. You can work digital, but you don't have an original to sell at the end of the day. So I am back to painting in oils, but I've kind of got back into doing like black and white illustration again. So exploring that even farther and getting back to kind of where I began.
So what inspired you to make your pet that I'm looking at? I'm looking at your pet token.
Oh, which one?
Your pet token.
Oh, Frank.
Frank, yeah. What inspired you to make Frank?
Yeah, he was my dog.
That was your dog?
Yeah, and I also do these tokens, but do I have any laying here?
Oh, I got them all. You can just tell me which one you want.
Oh, just fancy animals. Fancy animals and Victorian dress. For some reason, I kind of keep going back to those. So a lot of my the animal kind of tokens, like an elephant token. It's an elephant wearing a suit. Stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. I have fun doing those. And I did the same thing with Frank.
I saw your Frank token, and I was like, "What is that?" I still remember when I first saw you and met you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, man, who draws that? And I was like, and I just saw it on the table, and it was just some random table, and I was like, RK Post, and I'm like, well, that's a cool token.
Yeah,
always right outside there. You could go and meet him. And I was like,
pretty much, yeah.
Looking around like an idiot. I was like, that's RK Post right there. I was like,
all you have to do is just look for all the tokens on the tables. Oh yeah, that's that guy right there.
Is that guy right there?
Yeah, and I've been in the process. So there are over 1,000 different paper tokens, and updating the designs, making them more readable. The full color ones were some of the first tokens I had, but I've gone in the process of redesigning almost all of them, and almost completed the full assortment of the full color ones. But the black and white ones, as I go along, I update the design, or try to make them more legible, more clear to read. sometimes I'll flip out the art. I'll change out the art. Like I was never really happy with, like this piece of art I put on this token. I'll change to something new. But also, if you look, I don't have any. I don't think I have any tokens sitting on my. Oh wait, I do. Okay. Here's a Lorcana ink counter. But if you look at the bottom over here, there's a version number. I think that's version number. It's version number 1. But so like some of these tokens have been through 5 or 6 iterations. And then the back has changed a couple times over the years. It hasn't changed at all in the last 6, 7 years.
The last couple of years, it hasn't changed because I still have like a million of them.
Yeah, but I kind of like the collectability and sort of giving you indication that the design has changed over time. And then if you have the brown back ones, those were like the first ones that came out with in 2014. And they didn't even last the entire year. There were only a couple months of those, and then they were gone.
No, I remember those. I definitely remember.
Then they went to the greenback, and then they went finally to the to this one.
Is that the one you got? What's that?
Yeah, that's the one.
I got it.
Yeah, there you go.
I already got it. Thank you. There you go, Sonny. No, I have all your tokens for like years. Yeah. Of just like seeing you at the events, shaking your hand, offering you a beer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Being the man of the hour, being the tower of power. Just like
But yeah, 10.5 years of tokens now. And I'm making some new ones right now. So
I think my favorite tokens is the dog, and then the beer and wine, and the shots are always like. I think I'm always harassing you about making a margarita token.
I found my little note here somewhere to make a margarita token.
Yeah, don't you really?
I wrote it down.
Oh. I need that so we can finish the set.
Yeah, no, I have like this. I made this little short list of stuff I got to make. So
does it say margarita on there somewhere?
I think it does. But I have to redesign those too. Those that have the old design and the old backs on them. So I gotta
see. You can make one on the rocks, and you can make a frozen one. Like, yeah.
I go for the frozen ones myself.
I do the frozen ones when I'm at Chili's. Like I was just over there not too long ago.
Yeah, the rocks I have to, but frozen if I just I want to get messed up.
Yeah, I was over there harassing Joey Chestnut on Twitter, and he was responding when I just kept answering him. Because he apparently made a deal with Chili's. And then I'm like, every time I go to Chili's, I'm always on X saying that, hey, I'm at Chili's. Where you at, Chili's? And then he hashtagged Joey Chestnut, which is the one of the godfathers of competitive eating.
Yeah.
So now I'm harassing Joey Chestnut, and I'm going to have Joey Chestnut on the show.
Oh, you are expanding out. Holy cow.
Yeah, of course. Everybody laughs. It was just like, it was like 3 years ago. I was like, man, I'm looking at retirement. What am I going to do? And then I watched you start a podcast, and I'm like, well, I don't know nothing about technology. If you would have told me 3 years ago, I would have had 2 computer technology certifications with my 2 degrees and a third one coming up, and a podcast that allows me to travel around the United States.
Yeah.
Like I just came back from California to do some controversial podcasting, which is on some smaller. Well, smaller is the wrong word, but it's like it's not big. It's like Pop the Balloon Studios. It's the Push the Button studio or the dating game. Where they have like controversial conversations.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, and then I just came from California on that, and
I was there 2-3 weeks ago, Northern California.
I was in Sacramento recording, and then,
I was in Santa Rosa. It's like in wine country.
Yeah, I was all like, well, what's in, you ask yourself like, what's in Sacramento? And I'm like, nothing really.
No, the state capital.
No, it's the Kings, like every like sports team you can imagine is in Sacramento.
But Sacramento's the state capital, so there you go.
Yeah, see,
it's our California government in action.
So,
Hmm.
so I was going to ask you about something that's kind of controversial. Like, I know a lot of people hate artwork and AI. It just kind of doesn't go
Oh,
together.
yeah, okay.
I know it sounds kind of a bummer, but it's kind of like,
It's there. Um, I mean, I'll put it quickly. It's like new technology appears all the time, and sometimes you have to let it sort itself out. Like, what's its, you know, what is the actual impact it's going to have on the field? And fortunately, I guess for traditional artists, that most people do favor traditional art over AI art. And also, AI art is getting to look sort of homogenous because it's kind of feeding on itself. So it usually kind of, you can almost look at it now and go, oh, that's AI art, even if they have the correct number of fingers or whatever. But it sort of has a look and feel to it. So yeah, I don't know. That's one of those things that'll just sort itself out over time, and then you got to figure it out. But if you're a traditional artist and not necessarily a digital artist, you will always have something at the end of the day that is tangible that you can sell and do things with later on. So, and that's kind of where like say the magic original art market exploded for a while. It's still pretty solid, but they release so much magic art it's weakened a little bit. But still, it's there's a huge collector base out there for originals.
it seems like every 2 weeks, like there's some kind of new product out in Magic the Gathering.
There is,
Like you just blink your eye and there's like,
yeah,
Commander set 36. It's like the
yeah.
new set just came out, and then 2 weeks later, it's like Modern Horizons 10.
Well, no,
Or like,
so Bloomborough just came out, and then as soon as it came out, then they're starting to promote Duskmourn. What is it, House of Horrors that's coming up
yeah,
at the end of September, end of this month. It's literally like a month later, it's another set.
like it's like it makes my head hurt sometimes because I'll go on duty for like a week, and I'll come back, and
But
then I'll
also,
start check. Go ahead.
I also see that like Magic is going to go it's going to go two ways. I think it's going to go to Commander, and then it's also going to go to drafting. Like you can draft new product, you don't have to know anything about it. There's no huge investment in it. Same thing with Commander. You can just pull in random cards here and there after they come out and figure out if they're useful or not. But Standard, just play that on Arena. I mean, there's really no point to keeping up with Standard.
I mean, I know Magic is trying to push Standard. The fact that we get a $300 Urza Saga. It's first place for store championships. I was like, what? It kind of makes you want to play Standard.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people do this too. They test everything out on Arena, and then when it comes to say like an RC where they have to play Standard, they put the deck together from what they play in Arena. That's the way it works.
I mean, I used to be a Standard player at my old store back in Corpus Christi.
But it was a lot easier to keep up with, though.
Oh yeah, it was so much easier. Where you buy the cards, you play for a while, and if you're lucky, you get to keep value after the cards that rotate out.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's a lot harder to do now.
So
Although
do you have?
Sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I don't have anything important. Sorry.
That's So, do you have anything that you enjoy? Do you have any hobbies or interests that might actually surprise some people?
Nothing really crazy. Like what we're doing with the, like family time now is kind of fun. Like we're watching all the Marvel movies from the sort of the beginning, starting with Iron Man 1. And then last night we watched Captain America, Winter Soldier. And I think tonight it's Guardians of the Galaxy.
The Winter Soldier is one of my favorite movies.
That was it. Yeah, that was more of like a kind of a war thing than anything else,
It was like
more
espionage
so
almost, like.
Yeah, lots of explosions, soldiers, lots of fighting, all that kind of crazy stuff. And it was
like, it was almost like a superhero movie second.
Oh, it was. Except for Falcon, nobody really had like powers,
Yeah, not even that.
I mean, Winter Soldier is strong, Captain America. Yeah. But yeah, it was a lot of hand to hand and that kind of stuff.
So I have one more question to ask you.
Okay.
Do you have any like Easter eggs? Do you have any like Easter eggs or any hidden details in your cards that people are not aware of?
So I don't necessarily just hide random things in cards, but there are some things over the years that aren't exactly how they seem because something changed with the original card itself. Okay, I can give you 2 examples I can think of right at the top of my head. Well, actually, maybe 3. So one is Voice of All. So when I painted it, it's an angel. When I painted it, it was they never did the full card arts at the time. That one I think was plain shift. And when I painted it, I think the angel had white wings, and she's armored, she's kind of flying towards you, or whatever. But in the final, and I was working there at the time, they sort of told me, well, we're going to give her wings different colors because voice of all colors. So they changed the wing colors to different whatever. So that's like one thing, and that one's pretty minor. And then another one, I was working on a card, and it was like a zombie angel, and she's holding a lantern in her hand, and she's just undead and just kind of creeping along the field of view. And the card got canceled, but what they did was they focused in on her face, and maybe from here up, and then they photoshopped out the arm that was holding the lantern, and it was a card. It was Defiling Tears. So there's a full painting of Defiling Tears out there that you don't even see. The only reason they did that is because I just randomly put a black tear running down her cheek for no reason. It's just it was cool.
So there was going to be a zombie angel in Magic the Gathering.
It was going to be well, it was. I think it was something called Deadwalk, which you can sort of guess what the black ability would be. But yeah. And yeah, it had nothing to do with the angel. It had more to do with it was probably Sorcery and Instant or something like that. And then the other one is, which is kind of wacky, is we were talking about the avatars before. Avatar of Discord was originally the 8th edition Fallen Angel, and you can still sort of see elements in there of the original Fallen Angel. So if you look at her sword, you look at some of her costuming, and like the pauldron with the skull on it. Those are from the original illustration that Anson Maddox did, way back in the beginning. And then the horns too. But for some reason it didn't get used, and they went a different direction. So it's like, well, I have this piece of art. So I talked to the art directors. Is there something I can do to sort of retool it and make it fit in another set? And it was actually, they found a place for it in the Kamigawa block, the original Kamigawa block.
Out of all places?
Yeah, so that's why she looks kind of weird, because she was a kami of something. And I had these little kami spirits kind of floating around her. And then as it turns out,
talking about the Angel of Retribution. Is that the card you're talking about?
No, this is Avatar. The original was Fallen Angel. But okay, so I'm retooling it, and then it was supposed to go in the Kamigawa block. As it turns out, they couldn't find a place for it. So then it turned into Avatar of Discord. I pulled out the little floaty spirit guys, and that's kind of what you had left.
That's really interesting, actually.
Yeah, they just finally found a place for it, and they made an avatar out of it. So
they just have cards. They're like, "Where's this second? Where's it gonna go in?"
Yeah, they also have this thing I think they call art slush. It's so they have these random bits of art that were never used, and what was it? Thought Vessel was one of those. It was in the art slush, and then they just used it for Thought Vessel.
Art slush.
So, there you go.
I've never heard of that before.
It's like an internal term. I mean, I don't know why they tell anybody outside the company it was called art slush, but it is. It's just a big file full of random Magic art that was never used. Like from canceled cards or whatever. R&D decided that card was not going to work in this set, so they pulled it. Something like that. It happens all the time.
Well, Mr. RK Post, I wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. I really do. Are you going to be at the Hunter Burden event, if you don't mind me asking?
It looks like yes. But crazily enough, Hunter Burton scheduled up against a bunch of other things. But if I lock in Hunter Burton like first, then I'll be there.
I hope so, because I'll be there. That's probably
Well, I think they're gonna do
make time out.
something a little extra special on Unmasked that weekend too. So that's like another reason I should go anyway. Plus, I don't get down to Texas often enough.
You should come down to Pat's games where I play at. You can watch me lose a bunch of rounds.
It'll be fine.
Well, enjoying bad magic makes everything a little bit better.
That's true. You don't want to see anybody too happy.
Well, like anytime that there's a beer and some magic, and it's kind of makes things a little bit easier.
Oh, then you're having fun.
Oh yeah.
The wins are a lot. The losses are a lot softer.
So everything for RK Post is going to be on links and descriptions on this episode. So if you want to find RK Post and you don't know where to look, all you have to do is look on the descriptions of this episode, and we will have it. Can they scan that? I have some.
Probably. It goes right to the website. There's a discount code on there if they want to use it. I'll leave it up for
save 15% off.
There you go. You can use it over and over again.
All right, Mr. Post. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.